don't think you can. Yes, you should be able to see my screen. Can you let me know? Okay, sounds great.
Looks good.
All right, everybody. Happy afternoon. Thanks for having us. My name is Elisabeth Schlegel, and I have the pleasure to present to you together with Alice Fanari and Michelle Linsenmeyer, IT-assisted just-in-time teaching faculty development. Very briefly, Alice, let's introduce ourselves.
Okay, thanks. I'm Alice Fanari. I am Vice President of Faculty Development, Northwell Health, where I'm sitting today, and Associate Dean at the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northwell, which is another hat that I wear.
My name is Elisabeth Schlegel. I'm Associate Professor of Science Education. My role is mostly faculty development, however, across the curriculum, undergraduate, graduate, and continuing medical education.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Linsenmeyer. I'm Associate Dean for Assessment and Educational Development at West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. So under my umbrella is educational development, faculty development, preceptor development, all development.
Thank you. And we are going through a blitz today. So here are our session goals. We're going to describe new IT-assisted just-in-time teaching / faculty development modalities from 3 schools for you. We also will talk about how to engage with faculty and how to develop or adapt such IT-assisted modalities and capture ideas from the audience to share, educate, and disseminate possible medical education content with these modalities in order to do it really better. And this is the way our agenda looks for today. So we will have a brief introduction to Foundations and Theory by Alice Fanari, followed by 3 times 10 minutes, where each of us present and demonstrate our individual products that we have for you. And then we will pull it all together in a wrap-up that's 7 minutes. So it's truly a blitz. And I have the pleasure of giving it over to Alice. Alice, take it away.
Thank you. So we're here to talk about technology-enhanced faculty development. So I'd be really remiss if I didn't bring up an article authored by a wonderful team up at McMaster. So we have Joseph, who I just heard speak before, and Teresa Chen, who I heard speak, and wrote this article that was published in Medical Science Educator. And I think the important things that technology does, or should do, I should say, is connect educators to their learners. So if we're not making that connection, we're not being successful with technology. So it is our challenge as faculty developers, medical educators, to figure out how to do this continuing professional development with these new technologies. And this has to become daily habits, as they say. So it's not a one-off, but a daily habit to evolve over time. Next slide. So there's this wonderful learning loop that was published by very prominent people from McMaster. So I thank you. And I just want to say that the technology we're talking about today is very important. So needs assessment. I just heard a talk where they did a needs assessment to understand what the needs of the faculty were for scholarship. So we always start with needs assessment. So there's a new need identified for the faculty member or by the faculty member. So there's 2 ways for the need. Somebody identifies for themselves, or I say to a faculty member, you need to learn how to do X. So it's this push-pull concept where you push delivery and you pull, or a learner pulls content from a repository. Just heard a wonderful presentation about the new FactDev app, which I didn't know existed, and I apologize for that. And that would be pulling content. Then the content needs to be micro content. Unfortunately today, nobody reads. It's really important. Micro content. And that leads to micro learning. Excuse me. And then hopefully sometimes micro credential. So how do we credential people? And there's many ways to do this. I'm not going to be getting into this today, but this is a learning loop to think about when you're using technology-assisted faculty development. Next. And this is I'm not going to have a lot of time to go over this. I suggest you go to this article, excuse me, that is published in a different journal by the team from McMaster with myself on this, where we're looking at this push-pull concept. When are we pushing? When is faculty pulling? When are we identifying the need as perceived? And when is the need, they're identifying it as a perceived need, and we're identifying it to them as an unperceived need. So these four little quadrants sort of capture the whole continuing ed piece that we're all trying to accomplish. Next. So I love this diagram that was in the article that I just mentioned before, and it talks about future trends. I'm very much into future trends, so just-in-time faculty development. I heard talks on this right before this, and obviously right now. Thinking about looking at connecting this to performance analytics. How do we create virtual communities of practice? Because if we're not going to be face-to-face much anymore, how do we do communities of practice, which I'm a firm believer in? I just heard about this interactive videos from a colleague right here, Catherine Tong, thinking about using videos as a way to interact. And I love that concept of like sort of going to the movies and sitting with a group of faculty. And then, of course, how to use technology to teach with. So we must get on this micro learning and micro content and move into faculty development in these areas. Next. So I'm going to talk now, I hope I did my timing right, Dr. Schlegel, of just in time teaching infographics. This is my app. I was very happy to see the new FactDev app. This is what my app looks like. And my team here, I must always recognize the team that's on this page. I don't do this alone. Next. So it was really important for me to develop a teaching app because 25% of the time, medical students are being taught by trainees. That's residents, faculty, interns, and of course, teachers as well, clinical teachers. And their knowledge is coming from them. So if they can't teach or have the skill to teach, how is this knowledge going to be or this skill imparted on our learners? And this is the environment that they're in. So we must give the best teaching quality possible. Next. So I came up with this idea of how to improve the clinical learning environment. I shouldn't say I was actually approached by a trainee who told me I needed an app, that I no longer could be talking to people like I do. It's not possible, and that I need an app. And he thought that was the solution. So I went with the idea. And I developed an evidence-based knowledge and skills tool that uses technology, the app, and evidence-based educational resources that are designed as infographics, so nothing is text-heavy. We know nobody reads today, to guide the teaching in the moment needed. So it's in the palm of the hand, open it up, find the knowledge and teaching skill you need, read the infographic quickly, and take it forward. Next. So just as before, you could download the app right now if you don't have it. There's a QR code for the Apple Store and for Google Play. And it's 100% free in the Apple Store and Google Play. We call this free open access medical education resource. There's no charge. It's available around the world, free access. I must say the registration feature on the FactDev entices me because they know who's using their app, and I have no idea who's using my app. So I learned something today. So take a minute. If you don't have it, you could just go to the Apple Store and do JiTT Infographics, just like in the middle of the screen, or Google Play, and put that in if you don't do the QR code. Next. So when you open the app, there are 20 categories, all viewable from the home page. Each category has JiTTs underneath it, just-in-time teaching tools. There's 150 of these on the app at this point, with more coming. But currently, that's what we have. 20 categories and 150 JiTTs that live under the 20 categories. Next. These are the foundational teaching JiTTs that I have, and I want to point them out because everybody who teaches, no matter what discipline, what area, these are 14 foundational teaching skills for clinicians. I do have a classroom category that's more geared to classroom teaching, but these are the clinical ones. The QR code is there again. But I want to point out at the bottom of every single JiTT is an evidence-based article link out to the content on that JiTT. Everything is evidence-based, and the link out goes to PubMed, so it's not broken. The foundational also have an audio podcast to listen to, so you don't have to read the infographic. People have told me even an infographic is too much to read, but only the foundational ones have the audio podcast. Everyone could, and I am thinking about adding video in the future. So in response to Catherine's presentation, I'm thinking about linking out to some videos. But evidence-based article is a must because I want everybody to know this content is not made up and evidence-based. Next. So it can be used in any setting. I use it in grand rounds. Each JIT is downloadable as a PDF, so you can download it right into a PowerPoint and use the content in a presentation. And also the JITs can be saved as favorites. So you could actually ding a JIT with a star as a favorite, and it goes into a favorites folder that you build for yourself as a self-directed folder of the JITs you want to use. And those JITs can be deleted or added to depending on where you are in the classroom, ambulatory, outpatient, inpatient, or grand rounds. So you can make different favorite folders. Next. So this is how to use the JIT. I'm not going to have time to go over this, but people always say, so how do I use this content? What do I do with it? So this is a flow chart of how to use it. There's a pre-huddle that you should pick a foundational one, then a subspecialty one, and always use the feedback one, which lives in foundational. So that's really important. And then, of course, I have a survey on the app. If you want to give me feedback, I'd really appreciate it, people doing the survey. But this is the process of using it. Next slide. And the good news is there's a YouTube video that links out directly from the app to a YouTube video to describe that diagram I showed you just before in the previous slide. And it's about under 4 minutes, over 3, under 4, on how to use the JiTT Infographic app using that diagram as a basis. And once again, of course, I have a survey. In addition, I am giving continuing education credit for the use of the app. If you want it, it's all self-contained in the app, and that would be up to you to decide to get CE credit. It's an endurable product endorsed by the CME Accreditation Society. Next. This is my usage, just so you see a visual map right now of where it's being used. So you could see 82 countries and over 3,000 users. This is as of May, so we're in June soon. Next. And these are the most tapped individual JITs on the left, and on the right are the most tapped individual categories. So these are the top 10 categories and the top 10 JITs that are selected here. So you could see what people are really interested in. And this changes, the analytics are live behind the JIT, so it's constantly changing behind the app. Next. And that's it. And here I am for questions, email, call, Twitter, anything. And I think that's my last slide.
Thank you, but you would still have 2 minutes if you want to ask any questions, Alice.
Anybody would like to ask me any questions? Anybody? I didn't mention, if nobody's asking questions, I am always looking for collaborators. I just had a meeting Friday with a colleague in Brooklyn, New York, and he wants to add to the LGBTQ plus category that we don't have enough JITs on teaching issues specific to that community. So he is going to be creating some JITs, and he gets credit, the scholarship. So he gets scholarship for micro learning, micro content, micro scholarship, and his name goes on the JIT. So everybody who creates the content puts their name on it, and the only person that's constant on the JIT is my creative designer, who does all the infographics, and they are all culturally sensitive and address cultural diversity. So I'm very proud of her. So that's something I forgot to mention. Any other questions? I appreciate. How long did it take to develop and launch the app? Oh, it's been a journey. I knew nothing about apps. First, I had to find money. Then I knew how much money I had to find an app developer that could fit my budget, which was not easy. My app developer is in Israel. He's a fabulous app developer if you ever need one. I had nobody internal to help me. We had to go outside. So I started the first version of the app in January 21, and then the second version of the app came out in March 22, which we just passed. So there's been the initial app and major upgrades based on feedback, like the evidence-based articles, like the cultural diversity. So I guess I'm on my second year. I'm still in my toddler stage for sure. Maybe I moved out of infancy, but I'm definitely a toddler in this. The graphics are beautiful. Thank you to Melissa Affa.
All right. Thank you
I
very
get
much,
no
Dr.
feedback.
Funari.
I'll write in the chat. I don't, very little feedback. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Awesome. So I'm going to take it away next. So I will be talking with you about ELearning Bites, or in very short, eBites. And I also would let you know this is my health professions education blog, which I'm collaborating with together with my research students, Janine and Hannah. And if you want to access the blog, go ahead and go to the UR code and access one of my most recent blog posts right away. Okay, so faculty development. So when we are in faculty development or in medical teaching capacity, any one way, we also strive to inspire active pedagogy. We try to do active learning. We try to do flipped classroom. We try to give a lot of information and instill in people how to interact with environments, with persons, with specific theories, with pedagogies, a lot of things. And usually what we do is we send out articles, and then we meet in a workshop, or we meet the person, and then we find out the person didn't really read anything because it's way too much stuff and way too much slides and just way too much to do for people with busy schedules. And this problem was even compounded when COVID hit. And I know I needed a tool such as faculty development to go, education to go, right and now. I needed something that I can access anywhere from any time, that is evidence-based, that gives me the information that I need, and that goes with me wherever I go. And this is when I came up to establish a blog, and this is when eBite was born. eBite is an academic, evidence-based health professions education blog. It is an inclusive multimedia blended learning tool for all my diverse learners and settings. It is easy to develop, easy to disseminate, and fast to read. It adheres it with all the individual hallmarks of just-in-time teaching because I can get it right when I need it. And it inspires co-creation and co-authoring of posts with my students. And a couple of them actually really authored posts with me, which is really, really cool. So what are the domains that I cover? So usually I'm covering anything that is also overlapping with the typical health professions education programs out there. This would be such as curriculum development or evaluation and assessment, anything in leadership and management, professional development, research methodology in medical education, teaching and learning, and I also have humanism now. And what we use is, we really use a wide array of really making pleasing for the audience while keeping it brief. So we use webinars, infographics, YouTube narratives, anything that's out there that's appraisable in any way and that you can really use for educating your learners yourself. Now, we also hook it up to Google Analytics. And I know as of, well, May, last time we checked, it was 64 countries that read my blog, mostly in the United States, which is really very pleasurable. But I actually can drill really deep and take a look about how many of my blogs are read on a specific day, or how long do my readers engage with a specific blog post, or what is their favorite, right? And by now we have about 21,000 pages accessed. We have more than 5,000 readers in more than 6,000 sessions. So I'm very, very pleased where this goes. And I really can say that there is a need for that. So what is the style that I actually picked? And it's quite interesting. So most of my readers, as my demographic tells me, are millennials. And millennials, actually, they want to have it short, and they rated a very specific journalistic item as their favorite. It's called a listicle. And a listicle is an article that is really a very short content format that uses a list. It's as simple as that. And that works beautifully for a blog. And also I want to let you know, I'm doing blog interviews, as you can see, one is here with Dr. Funari herself. And then your questions become part of this list. So it's very easy to scalable. Okay, everyone, are you ready? Let's create a blog post. So I'm making a tiny pause here. Can you tell me just some faculty development needs that you want to have solved where we could write a quick blog post, and I'll show you how I do it. And I can't really see anything of you, but I can hear you. Anyone, any idea? Let's give me an example.
Okay, I didn't want to take over, so a blog post on how to give feedback.
Awesome, excellent. So Alice, here's what we do. Let's write a brief topic introduction. Very brief, just about 300 words. Now, Alice, let's break it down into 5 individual teaching topics. Sorry to put you on the spot, but what would be 5 cool topics about giving good feedback?
Self-assessment, factual, timely, specific, yeah, and be
specific,
and lead to self-direction.
Excellent, wonderful. And we probably can go on and on or exchange it out, or maybe you're running out of time and you have only 3 points, but I think you get the point. This is exactly how you create a listicle. Now, Alice, we are done. That's all we need to do. So the next point is, let's write a summary and a brief reflection, how this might work, or in what environment or what safe spaces you have to create in order to really make a valid feedback work. And then let's give a call to action. Alice, what would be a great call to action?
A call to action would be everyone start feedback with self-assessment.
Excellent. That's all we need. And now we need one final point. Let's have a great visual. So these people all did great assessment and great feedback, and that's really all you need. All right. Thank you very much. And in all the brevity, that's what I have for you. What will you be blogging? And I want to take a brief moment. I have about 3 minutes. How can blogging help your needs? Let me know if there are any questions and answers, and I will zoom out a little bit so I see the chat. Any questions about how blogging can support you?
I just really like that you've made it very simple and easy to do. Like, I'm thinking we have a French campus as part of McGill. How often do you post? Can I ask? And
sure.
And
so
Cleo,
Sorry, Cleo. So in the beginning, basically, I really needed everything that I teach to be accompanied by a post, because it had to go out of the learning management system and it had to go national and wherever it was needed. And I did it twice a month. And but now I found I can actually reuse blogs and update them as needed. So now it's a little slow. So I would say I went first with a rhythm, I would say bi-monthly, to a rhythm that I now say it's needs-based. But in the meanwhile, wrote also an online course about assessment. So my next blogs will cover assessment as needed, but really depending what I teach, depending where I go.
And can you, I think you said you can track with analytics.
Yes.
So when you post a blog, do you have a sense of how many people are you looking at that blog? And I'm sure it varies, but for one blog, like how many people are looking from?
Yeah. So Cleo, basically what I'm referring here is to the push-pull way of, sending out your blog versus, having people on their own looking. So I push it out to major listservs, to a targeted audience who I know would really need the content or would be interested, in order to really not spam anyone. And this is about 5,000 people, I believe, on Dr. Ed at this point. So this is about how many look at them. And then I can drill down into Google Analytics and really look how many people opened it, how long did they stay, what day of the week it was. So we can actually really target it. What is a good time to send it out to catch Europe versus to catch America? So people really have time, because the time frames and schedules are different. Yeah. So it gets actually very specific. It's really good.
Thank you. That's really interesting.
Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, I'm moving on to Michelle.
You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to set the stage just a bit, just to give you an idea of the scope of what we were trying to do. In West Virginia, we really work under a distributed undergraduate medical education training model, which means we have 7 regions, 25 base sites, support 400 students, and 750 or so preceptors. And so thinking about this, our real challenge was, how can we get information out to these preceptors that we feel are critical? One of the things that kind of prompted this is that we were developing, and our students were going to be starting to request assessments for EPAs through their mobile device. And so we really wanted to give the preceptors a heads up about what this is, what they're going to be doing, what it means. And so we were looking for a way to get that message out. And we had tried webinars, we had tried online modules, we had gone out live to the different regions, and we weren't really being successful getting that message out to all preceptors. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we really took some time to kind of try to think about what we could do, and we did a needs assessment. From that, we found out that some of the critical things that the preceptors wanted, they wanted anything that they were given to be easy to use, that it had to offer CME credit, and it had to offer some topics that were of interest to them, which is typical. It's not that these were, you know, unique ideas, but we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what they needed. So we came up with this idea based on kind of the feedback that we got. And I'll go into more detail about exactly what the idea is, but based on that, we did a pilot with just a small number of our preceptors just to get some additional feedback. And we didn't roll this out until this past year. So we're still definitely in the infancy of implementation. We're looking at collecting feedback now at the end of this year, which is going to be end of June. And we'll really get to kind of see where we're at on this project. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we came up with is that we wanted something that had very little technical support that would be needed. We wanted all of our participants to be able to do everything in one place, not have to go to multiple places. We wanted it to be a familiar process. We wanted to target the training, which is one of the biggest differences I think that this brings out, is the ability to target training, and we wanted the preceptors to be able to opt out. So we chose to do the faculty development, and it's really a push through our academic management system. So our academic management system, we do all of our scheduling, all evaluations are done in the system, grades are done in the system, everything. So our preceptors are already used to going to the system and doing things. They're already used to getting emails from the system. So they don't tend to block those out or delete those. They tend to pay attention to those. So that was a familiar process for them, is being able to do it through a system that they're already using. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So through the system that we have, we set up a mechanism for sending an email to the preceptors. Like I said, it's a system that they're used to. They're used to getting those emails. So it was an easy way for them to get the information about the faculty development module. And we have a way for them to opt out of it. We haven't had any preceptors opt out, which is nice, but we are able to take them off the list if they don't want it. Once they click the link in the email address, it automatically opens up to the module, and they watch the module, they do the evaluation, they do the post-test questions, and they submit. And once they submit, they actually get their CME certificate. So they can either print it off and keep it for their records and submit it to their accrediting body, or they can, we go in and actually pull things off and submit them as well. So all of it's done through one email link, very easy for them to do. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. On the back end, it's very easy for us as well to kind of track who's completed it, what module they did. We pull off all the osteopathic physician reporting and send it into the Osteopathic Association for the CME for those physicians. The allopathic, they actually use their certificate to submit, but it saved a lot of staff time, because before we would have to, create the certificates based on who did it, send the certificates to them, and or send them to the Osteopathic Association. So really, we've been completely hands off from it. The only thing that we do is we put up the module at the beginning to start kind of the process. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So what I said was the biggest benefit of it is the targeted development. Because we have it incorporated into our academic management system, we're able to send specific discipline-based modules out to say, if we want something to go out to all pediatric preceptors, we can send it out to them. If we want it to go out to just the preceptors in a certain region, we can send it out to just those preceptors. If we want it to go out to a certain specialty that is kind of a subspecialty, we can send it out to them. So we have the flexibility to be able to send these out to a targeted group of individuals, which we work really closely with our course directors, which are actually rotation directors, to find out what the needs are for each of their areas. Overall, the advantages are that it's a familiar platform. The preceptors, everything is completely self-sufficient. They don't ever have to contact us. We don't have to reach out to them. We don't require any additional resources because we've already, built it into a system we're already using. Very little technical support. We haven't really even heard from anyone that had any technical issues, and it can be done at their own pace. So another thing I heard from some preceptors is that they really like it because it's a reminder to them when they get an email. It reminds them to do the faculty development, whereas when we put out like online modules or webinars, they have to take it upon them to log in and do it, like they have to account for it. So they really like getting the little email reminders, and they can do it right then. They can save the link. So some of them have a folder in their inbox that they keep them in, and they can go to it at any time and click the link to open it up and do it. We have to keep them around 30 minutes for CME credit. So it's a little long. We'd prefer to do them, like 15 minutes, but they know that they're 30 minutes, so they can kind of schedule time. If they know that they're going to have 30 minutes around the noon hour, then they can go into their little folder on their inbox and pick one of them and go in and do it. So it's worked really well so far. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The only disadvantages are, we miss out on that live interaction and discussion. We do within the videos or within the modules, give them an email address that they can ask questions or if they want further discussion, but it doesn't happen in the moment. So I think that that's one of the downsides to it. Go ahead and go to the next one. But overall, we're really pleased with the system. Our needs obviously are different than other institutions because we do have this distributed model. So this might not work for everyone, but we really like the ability to target the training. That is going to be something that we're looking further into as we do our evaluation of the system and try to do any refinement to it. But we think that it's working well. So go ahead and go to the last one. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or here's my email address if you want to contact me to get further information.
All right. Thank you all very, very much. So we do have some time for questions overall. And what I'm going to do is I go very briefly out and grab the link to my blog.
Anybody have any questions? Catherine, I guess we have a few minutes, right, till 2:45?
I guess my question, yeah, thank you so much, guys, for your presentation. These are all incredibly ingenious projects that you've been able to complete and reach out to the faculty members who are, so busy and so overstretched in various different contexts, just compete with all the other distractions out there and tasks and things to be able to get a little bit of learning in there. So as a fellow faculty developer, I really applaud you for your effort and your discoveries in different ways to get through. I guess same question that Alice had already answered earlier from another participant. What sort of feedback are you getting formally or informally from your target audience through your projects?
I put in the chat about the continuing ed feature, then you're required to fill out this detailed form about what you learned and all this stuff, and you have to identify yourself or you can't get the continuing education credit. But I don't think that's a big uptake for me. I don't think that's a draw to use the app to get CE credit. That's my personal opinion. And so far, it's only been up since March, the CE credit, and the uptake is very slow. It was 0 last time I checked. I didn't check before this meeting. I apologize if I went up to a single-digit number. I think this is a project. I know Elizabeth could talk about comments that she gets because in a blog, you could put comments, where my app, you can't do that.
Well, I have to be specific though. So this is not a blog where you buy shoes. So it's an expert blog, right? And usually people don't have the time or they don't want to put their name out there in the comment, but what they do is they write me personalized emails. And that is really cool because then I learn, oh, these are people who are in a shift and they found my blog in a shift and that helped them. So I learn a little bit about the readers. But what I mostly find when I use this, and usually I have targeted audiences, I have people who I consult with or people who I'm teaching, and I find the whole teaching process, the whole faculty development, professional development process goes just so much smoother. And sometimes I'm just pulled into a meeting that happens ad hoc, right? And they say, okay, so I'm giving you my spiel, but I also send you my link out there and you find all the references there and, it helps you. So it's such a good bracket to close whatever discussion you have. And I find it makes just a lot of discussion so seamless. And I feel it's just really helpful. So if that's a quality description.
Yeah, and I think for us, one of the things that preceptors have told us is that they like not having to contact anyone for the CME credit because it is important to some and not others. And so they have the option if they want to do it. And we don't have to try to figure out who wants it and who doesn't. They just, pull the certificate and use it if they want to use it. And we've had preceptors that have said to us, like, can you put something out about writing letters of recommendation? Like, it's that time of year and they just want something quick to be able to, get through it. And so we'll push something out, and if they're interested in it, they do it. If they're not, then, they can just delete that email. And so I think that's been nice, is the targeting when they need it and sending it out.
I am planning a whole social media strategy. So someone said, how long did it take you to develop the app? So, I was an infant. Maybe now I'm a toddler. I don't know. But I need to get to kindergarten to get to the next level, I feel. Like, this is really a small little piece of my life, but it's my whole life. And I really have to just, there's so much you can do. So like in kindergarten, I feel I'm going to have this whole social media strategy for this app, which I don't have now, but I would like. So I'm thinking that way. I'm thinking about linking out to videos like Catherine spoke about in the last session. It's easy for me to link out to videos. I just haven't done it. So I need to think about that. So all this will get me to kindergarten, and then I'll decide if I really want to go into first grade or not. This is my thought. Like, my goal is to get to kindergarten. And right now, I'm not even in nursery school. So this is really what I feel like. It's a growing process. It's developmental. And figuring out how to get feedback. So I just also want to mention two things nobody asked me here that they ask me every time I present. Is there a search feature on the app? No, there's not, because I don't have the money to do it, but you could have a search feature on an app. I just don't have the money. It's very expensive. Well, it's very expensive for my budget, I should say. So that's one thing. So I did the favorites, and the favorites were a replacement for the search. So that's one thing you didn't ask. And another thing people ask, how do you measure learning, like from Elizabeth's blog or my JiTT? And obviously with CME, you can measure self-reported learning, but how do you measure like actual learning from these things? And Catherine, I don't know what you think about it because you're using those videos. What do you call those sessions you have? I love the name.
Watch parties.
Watch parties. That's because you're young. You call it watch parties.
That's cool.
So those watch parties you're doing, like, how do we assess learning from all these technologies?
Yeah, exactly.
To me, that's the deep-rooted question.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just put things out there. There's so much out there, but when is somebody learning from this?
Exactly.
Challenge.
Well, you mentioned a number of references where the analytics are used to measure, very granularly the interaction with your content. How many people open the email? How many people clicked on the link? How many people spent more than 90 seconds on a page? How many people retweeted?
I have all that.
We have all that, yeah.
Well, some of you had that. I mean, that's just one of the number of ways to evaluate your program, right? You're talking about.
But it doesn't measure learning.
Exactly.
It measures usage,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine for now because I'm only in toddler stage, but I do need to move into learning analytics.
I'm not sure the rest of what I was going to say. Cleo, go ahead. I know your hand is up for a bit.
Oh, yeah. So this is all extremely interesting. And I just was thinking about measuring learning, and this would be more expensive on an app and stuff like that, obviously. But I mean, you could, if you can push out like a survey 3 months later, ask what element did you use and how did you use it? But
Yeah.
That involves privacy and all kinds of things, but that's something that could be done. My question though also was about, do you get the feeling that, I think this reaches people that you don't reach with traditional webinars and things, but have you seen anything like increased participation or feedback about how you're getting people that are not going to traditional effective, that you're reaching other people or more people?
I think geographically, for me, I'm reaching parts of the world where they don't have access to faculty development, and that is a goal I have, and why I kept it free and did not make it a profit-making situation, which I had the choice to do in terms of my intellectual property. And when I spoke to the lawyer, she said, look, you could charge for it or you can do it for free. Northwell didn't care. So I went with the free. Now I don't have money for things I want to do, which is unfortunate. So I do feel I'm helping people geographically right now, and that's good. And I hope in the future, to learn more about learning, which is really what we're trying to get at. I think it's a process. This whole thing with technology is a process, and we're all learning, and we want to learn what other people are learning.
Yeah. And we're running really out of time, but I had one idea. Cultures are so different. So obviously we write for the US and Western based culture in a certain way. I was wondering how country specific I could get and find out the needs. So really write blogs for specific cultures. If I would only know how medical education would work in these areas, but I guess it will be on me to find out networking and to find out networks and student networks and whatnot in order to really make sure that other people have access to content that they actually need and actually use, because we are very America and Western centered. So that's one of my stretch goals going forward.
So she's also in, I don't know if she thinks she's in toddler or nursery school, but whatever. She's growing up with a blog. But I want to say also, my blog was converted to German, Cleo.
My English blog is written in Austria and Germany. Right, but it's short.
But my blog, not my blog. I wrote my blog.
You're beautiful. Yeah.
Has been converted to German, and I'm presenting with the German team at Amy, and that they picked it up.
So cool.
And I am trying to convert some of the JITs to Spanish, because if you look at the analytics, the Spanish companies download it, Spanish countries download it, but they don't open it. Or they open it and don't use it because it's not in Spanish.
That's huge. I mean, with
that's huge,
yeah.
Huge, yeah.
I would imagine a lot of the JITs that you have that are not based on acronym or a rhyme would be very transferable between languages.
No, they've all 14 foundational have been translated to Spanish already by a professional group. Now we have to redo all the graphics and get them up. It's a process. So we have the Spanish translation of the 14 foundational.
It's very cool.
Yep.
I can tell you right now, which you already know this, most faculty members cannot name 14 foundational teaching principles.
Well, if they look at the app, they can, Catherine.
Now they know where to look for it when they need it. But.
Of course, that's my opinion of the 14 foundational.
Well done, everybody. I think, I would just say that, learning is possibly happening without it being easily measured. And that's a particularly difficult phenomenon in CBD and in faculty development. So just because we're, not always easily measuring that outcome doesn't mean that it's not happening. So that's
true.
Maybe a study that needs to be done by one of the people here. And
I just submitted the Change MedEd grant today to do that study. If I get funded, I will do it. It's due tomorrow. It's being uploaded today. So I wrote a AMA Change MedEd grant to measure learning.
Wonderful.
But you need money.
So maybe we'll hear about it a year down the road.
Yes, if I get funded.
Nice.
We'll see. Wish me luck.
Good luck. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, we do. Thank you.